towers of Babylon. Yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying. Oh,
Shalom, shalom, family, and welcome to another Tanakh review. My name is Zurishaddai. I'm one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York. Giving all honor, praise, and glory to the Most High, King of the universe, for life, food, clothing, and shelter, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. I'm grateful and thankful to the Most High God for another day of life, and sorry for my body disappearing in the screen. I did, as they say, the cardinal sin. I wore green with a green screen, so let me just try to stay steady enough so I don't look like I'm the invisible man when I do this. So thanking the Most High God for another day of life, food, clothing, and shelter, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. I'm grateful to this great King for all things and everything. I hope that everyone has had a great week. Early Shabbat Shalom to everyone out there. I pray that the Creator of heaven and earth has blessed you with all of your endeavors and all of the things that you desire in righteousness. So at this time, we're going to move straight ahead, and I'm going to turn it over to one of my teachers and one of my mentors, Nasik Zurishaddai ben Yehudah, so he could proceed with the Torah portion of Shemot. And I pray that the Most High God be with you all. And once again, all honor, glory, and praise to the Creator of heaven and earth. How are you, Nasik?
A great Baruch Hashem. First of all, I give praise to the Supreme Intelligence of the universe, God, my forefathers, God, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Due respects to the platform on D.C.B channel platform, spiritually Chief Prince Ariel Ben Saska, the host Chief Uzael, to the Prince, Chief, Kohanim, Rabbinate, Mordarim, brothers and sisters, and visitors to the channel. I greet you all in the tongue of my forefathers, Shalom Aleichem, and early Shabbat Shalom. And like I said, Adonai Sabtadi Takuvia Giti Atheka, O Lord, down my lips, my mouth should declare that praise. We'll be starting a new section of the book of Exodus, which is referred to, departure, leaving when we depart in Egypt. But the terms that we use is Shemot. The whole book is called Shemot, which means in the Hebrew language, which means names. And there's a lot of names being brought out in this particular sidra, as well as maybe some names when we get down to the book of Midbar. But the names here is focusing on genealogy more so than anything else in this particular portion. All right. So what's interesting is that we went down to Egypt as VIPs, and things changed over a period of time. So the book of Shemot, which is interesting also about considering the book of Exodus, Shemot, is that when it comes up always during the season of Martin Luther King MLK Day, or within that season of MLK. And, one of the things about Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King, is that he was, an advocate for civil rights and everything like that. And I had a lot of accolades under his belt as well. One of the things that's interesting is that the majority of his movement and speeches, he related to the Exodus story. In the book of the Exodus of it, Pharaoh down in Egypt and everything of that nature. And when we get into the story, what we find, is that Moses is beginning to go on a mission that he's told will be difficult. Not that it will be fair, but it'll be difficult. So when we think about the great Martin Luther King and his achievements, One of the things is that, unfortunately, that he was assassinated, and 4 days after the assassination, um, one of the congressmen, I think Conyers or something like that, tried to promote, a Martin Luther King holiday, and it make it made a lot of opposition, so it never reached the fruition that the congressman wanted to do at the time. Um, and that's in 1968, 4 days after his assassination. So now we get in 1983, under President Ronald Reagan, you know, he signed it into, as a federal holiday. And even at that stage, only in 19, maybe 4 years later, I might be off, the dates or so, years rather. But in 1987, 4 years later, that's when it became a national holiday. But prior to that, the state of Arizona, they didn't want to accept it as a national holiday at one time as well. So in 2000, and in the year 2000, that's when it became a national holiday in all 50 states. So imagine, from the time he was assassinated in 1968, the first proposal 4 days later after his death, and it's signed by the President of the United States in 1983. And then it became more widely accepted in 1987. And then only in 2000 that all 50 states, decide to, observe on Martin Luther King Day. So as a holiday, which would be the third Monday of the month of January, which is close around his birthday time. So I say all that to say, even in this situation, when you're, working for, human rights and, human dignity, especially for the black man in America, there's a lot of people that had different views on it, and you had opposition on both sides. You had a lot of opposition, which I'm not going to go into now because I'll focus on the book of Exodus. But he relate a lot of the struggles that he went through with the Exodus and with the powers that be in authority, how they try to suppress an individual, where it was about racism, and with Martin Luther King is racism in the sense of just color, as well as racism. Where here in the book of Exodus, we can really get into a thing of racism as well for national identity, just that against a particular nation. So this is the first that we actually developed that kind of concept in the book of Exodus. So it's no wonder that anybody that talks about revolution and making moves and stuff of that nature is always, based their struggle on the Exodus. So many songs is made about, the Exodus, one of our most popular is Go Down Moses, or some, that's not so popular, Hold Up Pharaoh's Army or something like that. So there's a lot of different songs they sing concerning that area. But I'm gonna get into it right now. Try to cover as much as I can in this area. So it opens up as this, and those that want to follow the Torah. So the book of Exodus, the Shemot, the portion I've been dealing with, it goes from Exodus, the first chapter, and ends in the sixth chapter, first verse. So, and the second verse of the sixth chapter starts another portion in our book. So those are the areas there. Now you have two Haftorahs that's done, that's read. One by the Ashkenazic, those that follow that particular custom, and those that follow a Sephardic custom. So the Ashkenazic custom is they went through Isaiah, the 27 chapters, the 6th verse, and it goes all the way to the 28th chapter, 13th verse, and then they add the end on a good note, the 29th chapter, the 22nd and 23rd verse for the book of Isaiah. But in the book, those that follow a Sephardic custom, they would go from the book of Jeremiah, the first chapter, and end at Jeremiah the second chapter, the third verse. So those that want to read that, each one has a different focus on what's going on in that particular area there. So now I'm just going to read some of the stuff in some of the insights in the book of Exodus. And it says, now these are the names of the sons of Israel who came into Egypt with Jacob. Every man came with his household. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, and all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, and Joseph was in Egypt already. What's interesting is that they go in the order of actually the wives. The first wives. Leah's sons is mentioned first. Then after that, then Rachel's son, Benjamin, who was actually traveling because Joseph was already there. And then after that, it mentions the handmaid sons according to their birth, which is, Dan and Naphtali, and then Gad and Asher. So it mentions them according to their birth. But what we have here is that when Jacob succeeded, that none of the other patriarchs, that preceded him, succeeded in, was that Jacob was the only one of the patriarchs that all his sons stayed together and united. Whereas, and hang on to the legacy. Whereas when we think about Abraham, we know he had Ishmael, he had Isaac, and he had 6 sons later on, through the relationship with the woman Keturah. And none of them stayed united. Isaac had just 2 sons, Esau and Jacob. They didn't stay united. So Jacob himself is the first patriarch that, though with the struggles and with all the turmoil that he had to go through in life, that he, the only one that was able to maintain all his sons' unity, and their sons all adapted to the legacy of their great-grandfather, Abraham. So that was made it special, and hence we are called by his name. So now it says in the 6th verse, and Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, and multiplied and waxed exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. All right. According to this here, the way it's written out, it's showing, and we got the age of Joseph when he died, and from the previous Vayaki. But what it shows is that Joseph actually died before any of his brothers. And there's always a bunch of controversy why he died before all his brothers when he's next to the youngest. But, he leads first. And then it's talking about the rest of the brothers. And then it says all that particular generation passed on. So it took a little time, but they stayed there for a while. And we know the family only lasted for 5 years. All right. So we're going to the next portion. And it says, and now there arose a new king over Egypt who knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are too many and too mighty for us. Come, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it comes to pass that when there befallen us any war, they also join themselves unto our enemies and fight against us, and get them up out of the land. Therefore, they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh store cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied, and the more they spread abroad. And they were a dread because of the children of Israel. All right. So when they erupted, the more they afflict them, the word oppression, it was like an eruption. The Hebrew word used like like an eruption, And when they talk about that in that sense, that imagine you trying to kill certain varmints, insects around the house, or if you're dealing with your lawn and stuff like that, kill certain, insects, or you have rodents. And the more you try to get rid of them, the more they seem to come back. That would make you wonder, is this stuff nurturing them, or this, and when it's your intent is to get rid of them. So the work itself, and then you say, well, how is it that if a people stronger and mightier than you, how can you force them into a certain situation like that? If you fear them, how much do you fear them? And then we know from when Yosef that the Egyptians thought Hebrews was an abomination. We know that even when Joseph helped out for the Egyptians, he looked at and looked at them. They looked at Pharaoh as saying, "I will be his slave, but never your slave." So now you got to say a new king over Egypt. Now, and when they talk about, he comes with a national policy, all right, and so this is something that to consider, that he's saying to the Egyptians, he's not talking to the whole populace as a whole. He talked to people of the Egyptian seed and blood, and he's talking to them and saying, "Look, we got to deal with these people here. Now they've been here for a while. Now, what would be some of the grudges?" And I said we'll get back to it when we get into the book of the Exodus. Some of the grudges is that Joseph was the first one to make them sell everything. He's in there, said, y'all sell everything for grain. Not only that, Joseph also said, sell your land. Joseph was the one that said, displaced them, and then made them servants to Pharaoh, and then strengthened Pharaoh. So now you got another Pharaoh now. So you figure Pharaoh should be, the new Pharaoh should be grateful that he has so much authority. But even in that, it's like a national allegiance that comes in surface now. It was a national allegiance because it didn't say the Israelites were trying to overthrow the government. It didn't say they was plotting to steal everything from them. All they did was being successful in their land. We had similar stories, when they talk about the different the Shoah that they talk about amongst the Jewish guys in Europe, and when they talk about the Black Wall Streets, and just not that we don't even think about one or two. It was a bunch of thriving Black communities after the Civil War. There was a bunch of them that was destroyed, and people just turned a blind eye to them, just for being successful. That's all. Not that they plotted against the government, but they was actually successful. And some people get envious of your success, especially when they consider that you intruding on their land that's theirs, regardless of how they acquired it. They figure you intrude on their land. So it's a lot of things that's mentioned here, that we got to look at. And if we go a little bit further, it said, okay. All right. And it says, I'm just going from the 13th verse. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard service in mortar and in brick, and all manner of service in the field, and all their service wherein they made them serve with rigor. I mean, just make the work hard. But that didn't succeed in doing anything. They're getting free labor. Sound like, what happens when the people is oppressed. You're getting free labor. they're not getting paid for the labor. So some people say this is national projects. You're working for the nation's good. So now the 15th verse, it says, and the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of one was Shiphrah and the name of the other was Puah. And he said, when you do the office of the midwife to the Hebrew woman, ye shall look upon the birth stool. If it be a son, then ye shall kill it. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared God and did not as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the men children alive. And the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said unto them, why have ye done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively, and delivered ere the midwives come unto them. And God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed mightily. If I get to 20 first verse, it say, when they say the Hebrew midwives, there's always a controversy between different discussions. Whether they was Egyptians discharged with this task, or they was actually Hebrews, Israelites, that's charged with the task. So, you could discuss it further with the teachers, but I'm going to share my view as I move forward. We move kind of quick. Is that we would say, they was actually Hebrews. That's from exactly where I come from. We say it was actually Hebrews themselves, not actually Egyptians. And it was made sense that from the reasons, and you could discuss it further, some of the reasons we use and explore is that Pharaoh only addressed the Egyptians about what we need to do with them. So why the Israelites working so hard? Do they figure they owe a certain type of allegiance to Egypt for the hospitality, inviting them down over the centuries? They adopted Egyptian culture. They believe in the Egyptian way of life to the degree that they say, I need to make this place great. How many people in America, when Martin Luther King was marching, he didn't just have, say, white bigots, that was racist. He had those that was also invested in the system that exists. So now you had people that other, pastors that was actually benefiting from the way the system exists, as opposed to if the system changed and bucking the system and creating problems to their economy because they invested in the system. So Martin Luther King had issues even with certain, colleagues that's in the ministry that was in this areas like that was invested in the system. So it stands to reason that these women is up around Pharaoh the king, and they have some kind of status that he figured, all right, you invested in the system. Perhaps I could tell you this and do it when they're on their birth stools, so to make it look like, these guys are dying. And that means you had to spread this here thing, to, a bunch of your people, that your underlings, is saying this is what y'all need to do. Because if you're talking about, bigger, say, I'll just use a small number. If you had 100,000 women, 100,000 women giving birth, and I just draw that from, just a number out of my head, when we talk about 600,000 men of war coming later. If you had just had 100,000 women, how could 2 women or a guild of women deal with that many people that's giving birth? So you know, the Pharaoh actually trusted them, but they feared God more so than man, and then, which would have been a death penalty because he was talking to death, and he wanted to kill the males. And there's a lot of reasons why to come behind that, but I don't want to go into those different, you know, speculatory reasons why, this thing was against the males only in this particular talk now. But he wanted to go against the males, and he trusted them with that, and they feared God more. So this is the first rebellion against an unjust government. We read about the rebellion with Sodom and in the 5 kings against the 4. But this is the first rebellion against an established order that was a government policy, and it was launched, and it was considered an unjust policy, and it was launched by these 2 women. All right, so, and it said, and it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that he made them houses, something to discuss later. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born you shall cast, into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive. So now he just come on out and said, we're gonna make this a national policy. A national policy. All right. So if you're gonna, so when you're gonna make this a national policy, before it was on the down low. I don't have a hand in this. You look to your own people behind that. But now it's gonna be out in the open. So out in the open, you throw them in the river. Fortunately, we didn't live, or everybody didn't live real close, that close, where it'd be easy to do it, being we all over the land of Egypt as it is. All right. And they just had one major river, which is the River Nile. So, and then to throw them in the river is not just for drowning, but to be eaten alive. Because you got, hippos, you got crocs, you got fishes, you got all kind of, serpents, everything in that River Nile. So if you throw a baby in there, even if he floated, something will snatch him up. All right. So now we get into the 2nd chapter, and it says, there went a man in the house of Levi, and took a wife of the daughter of Levi, and the woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. And when she could not longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes and daubed it with slime and with pitch. And she put the child therein and laid it in the flags by the river brink. All right. So now, before I get to the 4th verse, why is it now when we get to this area here, we got names? This is the book of Shemot. We talk about names. But yet, now it leaves who we know from reading the story, that the most famous individual, his parents is not, identified at this point in time. And some of the reasons is, it's not a need to now. The main focus is that this individual that going to be such a great man is not from an immaculate conception. He's actually coming from a natural man and a natural woman. So therefore, this is the focus on it, because when we think about, say, Christianity, and which not I'm not really jabbing, but I'm just bringing up some truths here. Is that when you think about Christianity and other ancient religions, even Egyptians, even amongst the contemporaries, as late as the Japanese, that that every their leader was of divine origin, like a demigod. So more so, what would be more familiar with is the Greek, stories of Hercules, and different guys, beside, Perseus and stuff like that. So where, their gods come down and have relationship with women, and next you have these demigods, And some people look at Genesis as that same kind of story, which I addressed then when they talk about the Nephilims and stuff like that. So it's not even when we look at the different Gilgamesh stories and stuff, but that's kind of way most people believe. But that's not something that we adhere to in Torah, and that's not what we're saying, that this great man coming from a natural, birth of a man, from a relationship of a man and a woman, that's earthly, not divine. Though he wound up doing some divine things in his life. And it said, use the word a goodly child, but use the word kitov. Kitov is almost reminiscent of Genesis. When we think about the Genesis, kitov, God mentions that after every creation, and so it's kitov. It is good. So what is good? When we think about what is good, you got to say, okay, what mother that have a child don't think the baby is a good baby? So what makes them good? Because every mother that have a child say, "Oh, I got me a good baby." He's healthy or she's healthy. All the limbs are there. It's a good baby, good birth. And everybody say, "Oh, they're so cute." All right. So we're talking about the goodliness. And there's a lot of different views on it. But one of the goodliness is that she's able, at a time of a crisis, to hide this individual. That means that he's not one that be cranky, so to see that he's good is that you're not going to expose me when things get that dangerous to have and harbor this child. And some say she gave birth early, which stand to reason. But you could discuss those different points, as you go forward. But you say he's a goodly child after he's doing something with the sound, because when a baby cry, it's gonna be heard not in that one little spot, but beyond. The sound travels beyond, and they had people watching and checking for all, because Pharaoh made that a national policy. Now, mind you, it talks about this individual son, but you already have Miriam, his sister, and she's older than Aaron, his brother. So now we know that the policy of getting rid of the Hebrew boys wasn't a long-standing policy. It was a temporary policy. Hence, bring out those other different issues for discussion. Why would he come up with that kind of policy at that particular time? And basically, it was just to get the boys, and why that policy didn't stay in effect. And for all the time that Moses got ready to come back down there and visit him. So that means that policy was a short-lived policy. But a lot of people complied, and some people was forced to comply. And she did the same. She complied, but she complied with something different. And what we have also related to Genesis is that after 3 months, then she built a tevah. The only time you see the word tevah used in the Tanakh, even though the book translated is, an ark, most people that don't look into the Hebrew, they read it, they think of the ark like the Ark of the Covenant and all that kind of stuff. But which is where that is actually a aron, which means a closet or a chest. So when we think about the tevah, the only way, and it was done similar, and it had the same mission as the ark, the tevah that Noah built. There was to preserve life, and that's the only time that you read that. And they both wind up on the water, amongst the flags of the water. So as I go a little bit further into this, and it said in the 4th verse, and the sister stood afar off to know what would be done to him. Well, it seemed to be obvious that if the mother put him there, it don't even mention where the father's at this point in time. But if the mother put him there at the time, and then why are the sisters standing there seeing what's going to happen, at this time? Did she witness stuff before? Why the interest in at this matter? And then it don't even mention about the younger brother Aaron. Was Aaron too young to be out? She said, well, look, I got one son. At least I'm blessed with one son. So, I leave this in the hands of God. Because she didn't want to just toss him in. And said, and the daughter of Pharaoh came down to the bathe in the river. And her maidens walked along by the riverside. And she saw the ark among the flags and sent her maid to fetch it. And she opened it and saw it, even the child, and behold, a boy that wept. And she had compassion on him and said, this is one of the Hebrew children. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go call thee a nurse of the Hebrew woman, that she may nurse the child for thee? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the maiden went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. So before I get into the 10th verse, before we go straight ahead, we find that we find out that you got another woman. In this whole story of the Exodus, most women tend to be the key players so far. You got the midwives. You got Moses' mother. You got his sister sticking around. You got Pharaoh's daughter going against a national policy of security, which is a capital crime, and she go ahead and pick it up. So now the word, it's a word that's used there, amata, for, it's used in the sense of maids, and it also can mean an arm. The same spelling, same spelling, but one, one is an arm and one is actually a maid, a maid, the one that assists you. And so it's always a debate about that word, but I'm not going to spend time on that because I want to just move straight forward. But look into it. But there's always a controversy about, did the women pull the basket, or did she pull the basket out? And it's clear that that it would be her, because of the word shalak that she was there, sent forth her hand, because it wouldn't have been the singular when she had na'arot, which you would call to the young ladies that was with her, so they used the word na'arot for the young ladies. So, but when it comes down to actually, amar, which can be either a maid, it wouldn't use the singular, they would use all of them to get him, whatever the case is. So, and she the one took an interest at it and looked at it. So it would be more so related to, her reaching forth and stretching forth her arm. So I'm just bringing out those little points because those are the issues that people tend to debate on, and discuss more so because of the uniqueness of the word and how it can have a dual meaning. Being as you see it in the text, it might not have all these different, dagashims and different tenuos as we see. We just see it seems a regular shorish, a root. All right. So when we go further, and so it was fortunate enough that the mother, Moses being fed by his mother, so that means he didn't drink Egyptian breast milk. He drank Hebrew breast milk. He was nourished with that. So before we finish now, it says 10th verse, and the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses and said, because I drew him out of the water. Water going to be a major issue with Moses in his life. And water usually conceals. So there's a lot of mystical things and Kabbalistic things used, which I don't have time to get into now. But just that name there, she had the authority to name him. Now, she's given a name by tradition to Pharaoh's daughter because she took an interest in this child, Moses, and make sure he was reared up a certain way. But she wanted to also have input in rearing him up. So when we think about that, one of the names they call it according to tradition, not you're gonna find it in the text, so I'll make it clear. They just call her, Batia, which means the daughter of the Lord, the daughter of Yah. All right, but you don't find that there. But she do a great service on that behalf. This daughter of Pharaoh. In the 11th verse, and it came to pass in those days that Moses was grown up, and he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens, and he saw an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. All right, before I get to the 12th verse, I want to bring out this particular word that's used there, which is one verse is used there, and the exact same word is used this word, Wayigdal, So Wayigdal itself means he grew up. It means to become great, whatever it is, but it means two different things now. One, in the 10th verse, he grew enough, where the mother, his actual biological mother, was able to bring him back to the daughter of Pharaoh. So he actually grew in size and physical development. So the first part, it means he grew in that manner. Now, the exact same word in the next verse, meaning something else. How did he grow? What was it means in the sense of development. And as I said in the past, is that it takes a certain type of growth, maturity, to be concerned about somebody else. So a lot of people I met people from time to time that believed that Moses never knew his parents and his background and everything like that. And that's not the kind of teachings I grew up under. The teaching I grew up under, he already knew who his lineage, knew his people. Pharaoh's daughter want to make sure he's fully educated on all aspects, because a person can never develop, if you don't know your own history, then life for you is a mystery. It's bad enough when you're trying to figure out how to go through life and navigate yourself through life. But knowing your history, knowing your roots, that's such a prime thing that even today they're making money off of Ancestry.com and all that kind of stuff. So she wanted to make sure he had a wholesome education moving forward. And then when we look at this area there of a wholesome education, so when a child develops to a certain level in life, it didn't say that he discovered his brethren. He took an interest in seeing how they're faring out. How are these people making out? Because I'm not living like that. I'm not subjected to that. I've been cuddled and cradled. And then, what's interesting is that he's not that far away from the palace in the first place. So there's something else to consider as we, look into this particular story. All right. So now, when he saw, smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren, and he recognized his brother, he looked this way and that way. And when he saw, that there was no man, he smote the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. And he went out the second day, and behold, two men of the Hebrews were striving together. And he said to him that did the wrong, wherefore smitest thou thy fellow? And he said, who made thee a ruler and a judge over us, thinkest to kill me, as thou didst kill the Egyptian? And Moses feared and said, surely the thing is known. Now, they charged him with three things, judge, prosecutor, judge, and executioner. This is what he's charged with, prosecutor, judge, and executor. And he did this on behalf on some brother, and he checked and he said, look this way or that way. So it's always a debate. What do they mean by he looked this way and that way? To see if anybody was watching, or see if anybody will step in. How often we see things in the street, and we say, oh, well, I'm going to mind my business. Then sometimes we see things in the street and you say, I'm going to get involved. So that could be one view. And another view is that I'm getting ready to create a capital crime. And if I rescue one individual, then how could I hide them in the sand? If I think, that one individual that I rescued, he got away. He I hit the guy, but he don't know whether, I actually, buried him or whatever the case, unless he stood around. There's a lot of stories you could investigate and talk about. Why Moses the next day coming out, and he only had fear when the guy made that statement, but he didn't have fear prior, when he slayed the guy and left and went to sleep on it, had a good night's sleep, and just came out the next day. So this is, and sometimes he didn't grow up in that kind of phobia of Egyptians, because he's raised up around them. And also he still knew his roots. And sometimes for a person to actually help liberate an individual, a guy got to know that he needs saving. Now let's go, we can go a little bit further, and I'll try to make sense of this as I highlight some of this other stuff. Everything I'm not going to be able to touch on. So I'm going to skip down. Well, we know he met, he ran out, and then he met Jethro's daughters, and Jethro had 7 daughters. It was a guy that he could refer to here as Ruel, which is one of the names of Jethro. So he had 7 daughters, and Moses rescued them when they was being harassed at the well. So he ran, and he just stood by them and helped them out. So we got different developments of Moses' demeanor: one physical, one verbal, and one just standing on the right side of the issues. Those 3 areas of there is how you address certain issues in life. Which one you need to employ, you got to analyze the situation carefully. Sometimes physical action might be needed because of immediate situation. Sometimes verbal action, just voicing a concern, because you say, okay, it haven't escalated too bad where I could still be able to resolve this. But you did stop the fighting by talking, And the third is just standing on the right side of Israel's issue, saying, I'm going to post up on the right side of issues. So he went through a certain type of development in this area here. And so after, he stood there and helped him out. The man invited him in because the daughters told him how they got back so soon, knowing that this might have been a regular occurrence. And he gave them a daughter named Zipporah, interesting woman. And he had 2 sons by her, but one of the sons is mentioned here, and called him Gershom. And he said in the 22nd verse, for he said, I have been a stranger in a strange land. Wasn't you raised up as a prince amongst the Egyptians? Raised up as Pharaoh's daughter's son. So that means you have a lot of stuff at your disposal. The best school, you got some rank, and then if you're growing up, you got some authority. You're given a certain type of authority in that area there. Now imagine this: the same Pharaoh that made the edict to kill all the male children, and yet he's become a good grandfather, allowing his daughter to raise up a son. Don't inquire about, allow him to adopt a son. Don't inquire about his background, his nativity, and none of that kind of stuff. Just my baby girl loved this guy, and she raised him as her son, and he seemed to be such a great guy, outstanding, so well learned, so astute, handsome, and everything, a goodly child. He's very intelligent. I like that boy. All right. So though Pharaoh was a nationalist, he was a good, a good grandfather to a degree, you know, because of his daughter. He definitely was a good father in that sense for his own. And as we go further, 23rd, and it came to pass in the course of those many days that the king of Egypt died, right? And the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry came up unto God by reason of the bondage. And God heard their groaning and remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God saw the children of Israel, and God took cognizance of them. Pokard, which is the word that's used later on accounting. Say, okay, I weigh it out, they're about ready. All right. But why now? Why not all them years? Why it took so long? And one of the reasons is sometimes a person, you could see a person needs saving, but a person don't think they need saving. And therefore, you can't help save that person because the person don't believe they need saving. And therefore, to involve yourself with that individual at that time will create a hostility. But when a person reaches the point and say, I see that I need some help, and I need some help outside myself, that's when the Creator will step in. And you say, well, we're not supposed to even see our brother wax poor. How do I step to, a brother and help him out, and he don't ask me, and he don't see that he's getting poor? The Creator know, but the Creator, when he steps in, you got to realize I need it. And that's one of the things. You got to realize I need that help. When Jacob, our father, saw that things was different with his father-in-law, then that's when the Creator stepped in and said, look, going back home, in so many words. All right, that's when he stepped in. Jacob had to realize that himself. And so sometimes we need to realize that when we need help. As I'm going to try to rush through a little bit more of this, hopefully. And there's so much stuff going on. And it says in the 3rd chapter, and Moses was keeping the flock with Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the furthest end of the wilderness and came to the mountain of God unto Horeb. That means he walked a good little distance. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, and the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And Moses said, I will turn aside now and see this great sight, why the bush is not consumed. They got a lot of metaphors behind that, because Pharaoh wanted to get rid of us, but that ain't the first time. Sometimes people try to get rid of a certain people, an ethnic group, call themselves an ethnic cleansing, and it failed, and they endure all the hardships of the fire. But there's a lot of things that's going on here. But one of the things I like to highlight as we move forward is that there's nothing strange about seeing a bush on fire. That's nothing strange. All right. So you see fires every day, especially in that kind of life and out in the desert. And he went a good little distance off. And yet, it's only after he took an interest in why the bush is not consumed. So now, you know what fire is. You know what a bush is. So the interest is, not so much the fire, on the bush, but the bush endurance in the fire. That's what we got to think of. Can you endure the fire? So it's the bush endurance within the fire that he was caught his attention. I mean, the creator seen that, what I mean, and they said it was an angel, in there. So whatever that was, whatever Mr. was, which is a whole nother level, which I don't like to focus on at this point. And it says, when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Draw not hither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place wherein thou standest is a holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. Before I get to the 7th verse, I had a discussion with my brother yesterday, so I wanted to highlight this just in brief and passing. And excuse me. But in brief and passing, I like to highlight this point is that he said the God of your father. That means that the God of Amram first. That means that Moses knew about the God of Abraham, God of Isaac, and God of Jacob, because his father taught him about a particular God, and the Creator confirming that your father taught you correctly. I'm the same God of Abraham, I'm the same God of Isaac, and I'm the same God of Jacob that your father talked about. That's why I had to address you, and that's why I let you know I'm the God of your father. The same God that your father talked about, same God you heard about. Now, you in Egypt, you raised up in Pharaoh's house. How many different gods you going to hear about? You're going to hear about a guy from maybe the guy named Thutmose, guy from Potiphar, a guy from whatever else, whatever Egyptian name they had, you're going to learn different about their different deities in Egypt as you grow up as a man. But what you adhere to and what you gravitate to, that's that though you was exposed to all the different gods around you, I'm the God of your father. And that guy, that God, and your father taught you about the God that I am, the same one of Abraham, the same one of Isaac, and the same one of Jacob. So he didn't change gods. Though he was in Egypt all that time, he instilled in you the God of your ancestors. And that's important. A lot of us was denied the God of our ancestors coming up in this diaspora over here in America. But he letting you know that this is the God that he should adhere to. Though he was exposed to all these others. And that's when Moses knew right then that I must submit and pay ovation. I'm not supposed to look at it because I be in awe of this God. So this is one of the things why he knew to fall upon his face to submit, because evidently his father taught him that stuff. And so that's why I want to highlight that. Sometimes it depends on how you grow up in a household. And so 6th verse. Yeah, I'm most likely going to have to finish this next week anyway. But one of the things it says, and more we said, no, let me skip down. 7th verse. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people that are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters. All right? For I know their pain, and I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of the land unto a good land, and a large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. All right. This is the first time that place is ever called the land of milk and honey. It never was called that in none of the patriarchal times. But now, since the people are going to leave, I'm bringing you to a place that's good. Because you left a place because it seemed to be no good at the time. Physically, no good at the time. So now I'm letting you know that this place is good. So this is one of the things that's brought out. And now, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me. Moreover, I have seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And Moses said unto God, Who am I, that I should go unto Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? And he said, Certainly I will be with thee, and this shall be the token unto thee that I have sent thee. When thou hast brought forth the people out of Egypt, ye shall serve God upon this mountain. So, and I just want you to pay attention to the 12th verse and keep that in mind. And Moses said unto God, Behold, when I come unto the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, The God of your fathers has sent me unto you, and they shall say to me, What is his name? What shall I say unto them? And God said unto Moses, I am that I am, which I will be that I will be was a better translation. Even though I got this Masoretic text, that's what they translated it as, I am that I am. But I will be that I will be. And, Yah, Asher, Yah. And he said, Thou shalt say unto them, said unto the children of Israel, I am as sent me, I will be, as sent me unto you. And God said moreover unto Moses, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me unto you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial to all generations. So in other words, everybody didn't live like Moses. Everybody didn't, the father didn't teach him to stick true to the sign, and that one God and one path. Now, there was quite a few that did, but the elders would, be mainly ones that would know. And it said, 16th verse, And go gather the elders of Israel together and say unto them, The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, have appeared unto me, saying, I have surely remembered you and seen that which is done to you in Egypt. And I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt unto the land of the Canaanites, and unto the Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and Jebusites, unto a land flowing with milk and honey. And they shall hearken to thy voice, and thou shalt come, thou and the elders of Israel, unto the king of Egypt. And you shall say unto him, The Lord, the God of the Hebrews, hath met with us. And now let us go, we pray thee, 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. And I will know that the king of Egypt will not, and I know that the king of Egypt will not give you leave to go, except by a mighty hand. And I will put forth my hand and smite Egypt with all the wonders which I will do in the midst of thee, in the midst thereof. And after that, he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, and it shall come to pass that when you go, you shall not go empty, but every woman shall ask of her neighbor, of her that sojourneth in her house, jewels of silver, jewels of gold, and raiment, and you shall put them upon your sons and upon your daughters, and you shall spoil the Egyptians. Now we look out for the children. All right. Difference between the emancipation of the black man in America, we're free with nothing. So where are you going to go? You never got paid. You never acquired anything. Even the clothes on your back was handed to you. And that was it. So now you're free, but you have nothing the moment before you was free. And you have the same thing when they say you're free. The Creator has not letting us leave without anything. And they say, look, it's about your future. You're getting all this to build up your future, your sons and your daughters. And you wearing their clothes. So the first outstanding clothes we will have as a people is the Egyptian clothes, the ones of the masters. So when we talk about a certain type of culture, it's, you got controversy going all over the place about culture. I just, pretty much dress similar to the background I'm from, but is a person wearing suit and tie and everything like that. I don't find anything wrong with that at all. But so I don't focus on that. But but the thing is that our oppressors, what we had in Egypt, that's what we wore. We wanted the stuff that they had. The upper class of what they had. When you look at the certain branch of the Hasidic guys with the fur hats, the minks, whatever they got, and the knickers, the socks, like that. That was the style of the aristocrats during the 1700s. So if you was affluent, you would dress pretty much like that in the particular circles that they lived in. So, and they just tend to maintain it. With another branch, they wear that mostly the fedoras and stuff like that, the Harry Truman time and all that kind of stuff, the fedora caps. So, and it just became a trademark for them, So I'm BINAH YAH, so we wore turbans, as an identifying factor for us, and for various reasons at the time when BINAH YAH was formulated, which is pretty much, when and probably in the year I was born, so when they came with that and they formulated that and they had a certain look to try to get people to gravitate and ask questions. So, and I tend to maintain some of those different traditions, being exponent for BINAH YAH. But I'm not one of them guys that's demean other traditions of dress code. All right. So as we go forward, I just want to just go just talk roughly over this area here, because I know I'm gonna have to go back over it and highlight certain things. But one of the things is that when we look and we go into the 4th chapter, Moses started to deny. He's still trying to find a way out, and he said, "Behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken to my voice, for they will say, the Lord hath not appeared unto thee." And the Lord said unto him, "What is that in your hand?" And he said, "A rod." And he said, "Cast it on the ground." And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from before it. And the Lord said unto Moses, "Put forth thy hand and take it by the tail." And he put forth his hand and laid hold of it, and it became a rod in his hand. And that they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, had appeared unto thee. Now, it said the God of their fathers, which is the difference in the verbiage here is something key to focus on. In the 6th verse it says, "And the Lord said furthermore unto him, Put now thy hand unto thy bosom." And he put his hand into his bosom. And when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as white as snow. And he said, "Put thy hand back into thy bosom." And he put his hand back into his bosom. And when he took it out of his bosom, behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. And it came to pass, if they will not believe thee, neither hearken unto the voice of the first sign, that they will believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe even these 2 signs, neither hearken to thy voice, that thou shalt take the water of the river and pour it upon the dry ground, and the water which thou takest out of the river shall become blood upon the dry land. And Moses said unto the Lord, "O Lord, I am not a man of words, neither hitherto nor since thou hast spoken unto thy servant. for I am slow of speech. I use the word aral, which means like a circumcised, tongue, but it don't mean circumcised in itself, but it means that's the word that's used there for circumcision. All right, and heavier speech, and slow of tongue, heavier speech. And the Lord said unto him, who hath made man's mouth, or who hath maketh a man dumb, or deaf, or seeing, or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with thy mouth, and will teach thee what thou shalt speak. And he said, O Lord, send, I pray thee, by the hand of him whom thou wilt send. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, is not Aaron thy brother the Levite? I know that he can speak well. And also, behold, he cometh forth to meet thee, and when he see thee, he will be glad in his heart. And thou shalt speak unto him, and put the words in his mouth. And I will be with thy mouth, and with his mouth. And I will teach you what ye shall do, and ye shall be thy spokesman. And he shall be thy spokesman unto the people. And it shall come to pass that he shall be to thee a mouth, and thou shalt be to him in God's stead. And thou shalt take in thy hand this rod, wherewith thou shalt do the signs. So, in this particular portion here, you're gonna find out that Aaron gonna be called a prophet later on before Moses even referred to as a prophet. All right. So now I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna make sure I pick up from the 18th verse of the 4th chapter, and then as I go into the next portion. But some things I'm gonna touch on again, and when we get in this area here, that a lot of things that's missing is that one, God told him earlier, and I told you to pay attention to an earlier verse, that they'll believe you when you get to Mount Sinai. And that's when they got to hear God speak at Mount Sinai. So that was the proof that God sent them when they get the chance to actually have an audience and meet this God at Mount Sinai. So that's the most important part. God told them that, they're going to know I sent you when they get to that place. But it took us a while to get to that place, several months after the Pesach. But also the Exodus then, took a little bit of time, took almost a year. So, and one of the things that we look, and when we think about the Exodus, Moses, he didn't want to go. The Creator had already gave him the signs. We already read that the people, that king had died. But then later on, the Creator said, all the people that sought your life are dead. It seemed like he would have said that earlier, in that area. And then why would he choose Moses when he already said Aaron could speak and he could select Aaron? Well, those are some of the things I would address later on, is when I talk about him meeting Aaron, because he speaks to Aaron and tells Aaron to go to the mountain to meet Moses, which is a good little ways. So now, when we talk about leaving Egypt, Israelites wasn't actually held hostage. All of them was held hostage, and they was afflicted. But were they held hostage, or they didn't think there was no place where they need to go? That's something that to think about, because the elders knew their history, and they were saying, I'm waiting for God to bring us out. And you stand in a place where you're being abused, and you ain't thinking about moving out. Some people left out a while back, which I bring about later on. We'll get to that point again, and didn't do too well. But when we think about Moses himself, if God said they're going to believe you, then why give them signs? I always focus on that. Why giving you these signs if God said you're going to believe you when you go to the elders? Because sometimes you talk your reality into existence. You doubt in yourself Yeah, and it ain't about God now. It's about you, just what you want to do. You want more assurance because you doubting yourself. And also, if God, he talk about he can't speak, all right, and he talk about his lack of speech and impediment. One, it's always a viewpoint that he had problems speaking the Egyptian tongue, but not the holy tongue. That's one area. Because he got to address Pharaoh, and you're going to address Pharaoh. You're not going to address Pharaoh in the holy tongue. You're going to address Pharaoh in the tongue that's he recognized as being the elite tongue. So those areas there you're going to address, and then not only that, he's in the presence of the Almighty God. Might just say, "Look, I got this defect. Heal me, encourage me, so I could go ahead and do what I need to do." So there's a lot of areas and questions there, and some things I'm saving for the next time so I can complete and ride on into the next Sidra, which we get into. There's a lot of information that's here that I decided to stop now, and we'll pick it up next week, God willing, and go over some of the points of discussion that I left out there in reference to Moses and his encounters, and then the situation, and then also the dynamics, because we once set a certain precedence with Yosef. And so now it's not wrong to be nationalistic, but it's wrong to be an oppressive individual against a particular society. And so since we all this be observing Martin Luther King, when y'all see it be already passed, but the thing is about oppression of a particular people just because of either their color or their race. And so we find that first example in this particular portion. So I hope you got something out of what I said. Any mistakes from my own, and I greet everybody with Shalom Aleichem and the early Shabbat Shalom.
Hallelujah. Torah by Nasik. I totally look like an invisible man now. Torah by Nasik. Thank
You got the head showing. At least I know you're up in there some kind of way, man. Now, we're talking miracles and signs. So I hope they don't think that you did that on purpose, man. Miracles and signs. You see a hand come up every now and then. We see just a head.
Thank you, the creator of heaven and earth, once again, and Torah Yah for your life. And don't forget to like and subscribe and to share the video. Remember, it costs you nothing to like. So thank you all. May the Most High God bless each and every one of you. Shalom, shalom. Hallelujah.